We've been together for 15 years. We were married 3 years ago in June. I think RVing has, one, helped us with communication, because you have to be able to communicate to back up an RV.
Yes. Definitely.
Welcome to the Zami Nobla National Organization of Black Lesbians on Aging podcast. We are your sound source for Black lesbian herstory. I'm your host, Angela Denise Davis. The Zami Nobla podcast is on the road again. We continue our theme of travel with an interview we recorded in the summer of 2019 with Jowanna and Edonna. They talk about their RV lifestyle and how they live and work and travel these United States. Check out our show notes for a link to their travel blog.
My name is Jowanna Tillman, and how I show up in the world. I am a semi-retired travel fanatic who loves to work out.
And I'm Edonna Koon, and I show up in the world as a traveling, environmental, kind of strange person.
Interesting. What does that mean, Edonna, that strange person? What's that piece about?
Well, it's kind of a mixture between that consummate rule follower from my military background and the consummate, I'm 60 years old and I really don't care what you do. So it ebbs and flows through those two different things.
Wonderful. Well, it is such a pleasure having you on the Zami Nobla podcast today. This is a great episode because it dovetails with another episode where we talked about international travel and living abroad. And we're excited to have you here today because what we're going to talk about largely is your quest across the country and how you decided to pick up from Atlanta and live the RV life and explore the country. So it's very exciting to have you here today. Give me a little bit about your backgrounds, Edonna. I know you said you were in the military. Tell us where each of you grew up, and then we'll talk a little bit about your impetus for travel.
I started out, I grew up in South Carolina. Columbia, South Carolina was my home. But I've had the travel bug for years because my grandparents would always put me in the car and we would drive up to Washington, D.C. When I was a kid. I was the keeper of the map, so it helped me learn how to read. So I read the map. It was, of course, at my age during a time where we couldn't stop at a lot of different places in the South. So we would stop at what they call now rest areas, but they were not as nice as the rest areas are today. And my grandmother would always have a cooler and we'd have some chicken and some potato salad and chips and soda and stuff like that. So that's how I got that travel bug. And most of my family actually moved around a lot. They traveled.
And you talked about serving in the military?
Yes, I spent 20 years in the military. And I started doing that again shortly after college, actually, because I can't stay in one place too long. And oddly enough, the longest I've ever stayed in one place is here in Atlanta. Once I actually retired, I stayed here. And after a while, it was just too much. I needed to get away. So I love to travel, and being in the military helped foster and continue that.
What branch of service were you?
I was in the Marine Corps.
Okay. Jowanna.
I grew up in New London, Connecticut. I've always had the travel bug. Like Donna, I was always the keeper of the maps on the family trips. And in fact, a perfect gift for me is maps. I love maps. I can read any type of map. So even now in the RV, I'm the keeper of the maps. I have a truck map. I have a regular atlas, on top of all of GPS's. Our GPS name is, her name is Roxanne, and she and I are always fighting on which is the best route to take. I've always, as a young child, wanted to travel. And I remember reading encyclopedias. I used to love when the new edition would come out at the end of the year, and I would always read the encyclopedia because it would always tell you about the different countries. Mm-hmm. And that's how I traveled before I had money, was just reading about travel. And as I became an adult and I had more money to travel, that's what I love to do when I go on vacation. So whether it's international or domestic, I've always been interested in going many places across the country.
And before you all started this journey, what did you spend your life in terms of a career?
My last place of employment was Georgia State University, and I worked there for 11 years, and I worked in human resources.
Now, I remember when you all made the decision to pull up roots and begin this incredible adventure. Remind me, how long ago was that? How long have you been doing this?
A year and a half. Mm-hmm. We've been on the road we moved into our RV in April of 2018.
How did you begin to process this and think about doing this?
Well, Donna came to me in 2017 with the idea of traveling in an RV after we retire. And so she knows that it takes a lot to get me to move. She started with first showing YouTube videos of people who were actually doing this. And she said, maybe one day we could do something like this. So she didn't try to force the hand. She just kept showing me different ways that you could have the lifestyle. And then, and I said, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Maybe 7 years from now when I can retire, we can do that. However, I don't know, about 6 months into the process of her doing this, I ended up in the hospital because I thought I was having a heart attack. And I was under tremendous stress at work due to the consolidation of Georgia State and Georgia Perimeter and things of that sort. And it was very difficult on me. And when I realized my father died at the age of 57, he was a type 1 diabetic and his organs were failing. And he was at dialysis and he dropped dead. And I was so very afraid because heart disease runs through my family so rampantly. When I was sitting there in the hospital, I was sitting there thinking, I'm only 47 years old and I don't want to die. But I knew that if I didn't want to die, I was going to have to make some changes. And I remember after we left the hospital, we were sitting at Waffle House because I was hungry. I wanted some eggs. And I said, Donna, let's do it now. I said, let's do it. And she's like, let's do what? And I was like, let's sell everything and go into the RV now. Let's not wait until I can retire. And she said, really? And I said, really? And that very next weekend was when we had our first yard sale and started selling off our belongings.
Wow. I was surprised because she never makes decisions that fast. Mm-hmm. So I knew that the health scare obviously was a true leveling field for what she wanted to do. And I mean, even at that time, because after I retired from the military, I've always been self-employed. I was still just ready to move again too. So it was like, okay, don't push her too much. Let her go at her own pace and we'll get out of here whenever we get out of here. But she started moving at the cyclic rate of selling stuff. I mean, big items. I mean, we were down to our bedroom within about 2 months.
Wow.
With everything else gone and one table to eat off of. So she was serious and I knew she was serious. So we moved pretty rapidly after she made up her mind.
So how do you go about choosing the right vehicle, the right destination and points of interest? What was that process like for you all?
Well, choosing the right vehicle for us, we spent, once again, I think YouTube is invaluable. Every single manufacturer will have like a 5 to 10 minute video on their rig. Mm-hmm. So you can watch any type of, if you say, oh, I want to look at a Jayco Alante, and one that's 29 feet long or less than 30 feet, you can pull them up on YouTube and you can see all their features. That was very helpful in us kind of saying, no, we don't like those kind of rigs. Yes, we like this kind of rigs, but YouTube's just not enough. We started going to RV shows. In Atlanta, there are usually 3 large RV shows that usually happen in the late fall to early spring. And so we started going to RV shows because one, there's less pressure than going into a dealership. And so when you're at the RV show, you can just walk through every type of rig that they have there. And that very quickly made us realize that we didn't want a rig where the bathroom was all together. We didn't want the sink, the shower, and the toilet to all be in one room. We wanted it separate, or one, either the toilet needed to be separate or the sink or the shower. One of them had to be outside in a different space. So we ended up with a rig where our sink is in one area and our shower and toilet is in another area. And that's because there's 2 of us, we went down from 3.5 bathrooms to 1. And for both of us, especially when we're working, it's easier because somebody can be taking a shower and somebody can be out on the outside doing their hair and getting makeup, doing all of those, things to get ready to leave for work. So you have to figure out floor plan. You have to figure out size. You got to figure out what kind of lifestyle you want to have with an RV. We definitely knew that we wanted to do national parks and state parks, which means your rig needs to be 35 feet or less, because most national parks have size restrictions, and so do state parks will have size restrictions. And most of them are that max end is 35 feet. So we have an RV that's 31 feet long. We also tow our car. There's many things that will go into it. And I've written a lot about that on our blog, and I'm sure we'll talk about that later, but we really talk about how we chose our RV. There is no right or wrong way to buy an RV. If you have a truck that can pull a travel trailer or a fifth wheel, get a truck. If you want something that's 40 feet long, get that. I will never tell somebody the right or wrong way to RV. You've got to figure out which way is going to fit your life. And for us, we chose a Class C because I always have to go to the bathroom. And if I'm not driving, I can just get up and go to the bathroom and we don't have to pull over. So a travel trailer or fifth wheel, we figured out very early, would not fit our lifestyle.
And what is a fifth wheel?
That's the one where if you have a truck, it has a overcab and a spindle that comes down that attaches to in the bed of the truck.
Okay.
As opposed to a travel trailer that is being pulled by a ball and hitch on the back of like a car or something.
Okay.
So fifth wheels normally have infinitely more inside room.
Okay.
And travel trailers are easier to put down once you get somewhere.
Okay.
But the problem with those two is there can be no people in them while you're traveling. They all have to be in the vehicle that's pulling them. They cannot be in the back while it's being pulled.
Okay. So now I understand you will have like what we typically think of an RV where you're actually driving.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And you have a car behind it.
Yes. We pull the car behind it.
How many feet do you have?
Square footage on the inside, I think, is 220 square feet. So for most people, they would think that is small, but we have a bedroom with a queen size bed. We can walk around the bed in the bathroom area, and we have pull doors so we can pull the door closed. In the middle of our RV will be the sink, and across from that will be the shower and the toilet. And then in the front part of the RV, we have one slide that comes out, and there's a couch, and then there is a corner where the kitchen sink, stove, microwave, and then on the other side we have a dinette. We also, because a Class C has a cab over, on the top there is a queen size bed in that area. So if you look at for sleeping, if we wanted to sleep a lot of people, we could sleep 6 people in our RV comfortably. Now we usually don't have company because the couch is a jackknife couch, so it will fold down, it will fold into a bed. You can turn your dinette into a bed, and then you have that queen cab over where you sleep. Now, I use that to store extra food, blankets, things of that sort. It's more than enough for us. Now, most people, we've run into many different types of people and they say, oh, wow, that's just way too small. But I also treat my outside like my sunroom. We have a 19-foot long awning that comes out 14 feet. Because of our awning, I call that our sunroom. So now that we're in Georgia and the weather is relatively nice, our chairs are underneath the awning. We sit outside. Most times when we have company, they only go in to use the bathroom. We don't keep company on the inside. We do it outside, where what I call our sunroom.
So what was the first place you traveled to once you hit the road?
Oh, we went to visit your relatives.
Well, no,
we spent 2 months here after we sold our house.
Just kind of living in the RV?
Yes,
Okay.
living in the RV, getting to know the systems. There were a couple of issues. The hot water heater wasn't heating up, so we called in an RV tech, which is a person that travels around fixing RVs, which is a really, really nice job. If anybody's kids are looking for jobs, they do apprenticeships. But we got some of those things taken care of while we were there. We learned how to use the stove and the microwave and not drain all our propane, or how to sparingly use water and those type of things, how the air conditioning system works. So it was a learning experience for those 2 months while she was working. I think you stopped working the last 2 weeks before we left. And so it was partially to either put stuff in storage, go through the stuff that was in storage and make sure we weren't storing too much, and to put stuff in the RV and get ready to leave. So it was about a 2-month period.
Right. And it's really hard to say where we travel to first because this is a lifestyle for us and not vacation. We're always traveling. So our first adventures where we had to go to Texas because we've officially moved to Texas. Our domicile state is Texas. So we left here, we stopped in Tuscaloosa, we stopped in Mississippi, we stopped in Louisiana to get to Texas. So it took us 4 days because we weren't driving that many miles per day because we wanted to get used to the whole driving process. Then when we went to Texas, we belonged to a RV club called Escapees, and they will help you create your domicile for Texas because most full-timers either domicile in Florida, South Dakota, or Texas because of tax purposes, because they don't have state income taxes. And so there's things that you need to do to make Texas your domicile state. That's where we vote. That's where we have to do jury duty. That's where our mail goes. All of that is in Texas. And so when we get to a location and we stay a while, we just ask for our mail to be delivered to wherever we are. So we either have it go to the post office, general delivery, or we have it go to a friend or relative's house. So we stayed in Texas for a few days. And the first place that we stayed for a long term is when we traveled up to Connecticut. My 30th high school reunion was last summer. So we stayed in Connecticut for 6 weeks. And then we had work because we're both, well, Donna is closer to retirement age than I am. But as I stated, we started this. We left on the road when I was 48. I'm 49 now. We work every now and again. Our goal is never to work more than 5 months out of the year. And so we just finished up working at Yellowstone Park. But last fall, we had a job at Amazon. So that's what it's hard to say where we go because we're always moving.
Yeah.
So what type of jobs have you had since you've been on the road?
Well, we did the job at Amazon. And that was, if you've ever ordered shoes from Amazon, there's a possibility that if it happened last early fall, that we pulled your shoes and made sure they got to you because we were in Kentucky and we were pulling shoes and getting them out to people. So that was one of the jobs. And then the last job that we had was at Yellowstone, and we were checking people into a campground. So we decided there would never be hard jobs, which is why the Amazon job that we had, it just spiraled out of control for a minute there. So we had to leave that job.
Okay.
we had to leave that job. We decided that before we even started, that when we started traveling, we wanted to work in national parks. So the Yellowstone job came to fruition because we met some people on the road that told us about it and said you need to apply at this time. So we kept looking for the application process. We applied. And was it 2 months, 3 months?
It was just like maybe 4 weeks later.
Yeah. And they called back. We had an interview over the phone, and then we got hired. So we knew where we were going in May. And I think that was in November of last year. Yeah, November of last year. So we knew starting in November where we were going to be in May.
Mm.
And after that, we then figured out, okay, we'll start working our way closer so that we won't have to spend a lot of time and gas just trying to drive there, in late April or early May. Yeah.
Some people would say the idea of two Black women, two lesbians on the road would be somewhat of a scary proposition, being out there by yourselves, traveling the country in an RV. Who do you encounter on the road and some of the parks where you are? And what is it like for you all as a couple living out of your RV and just traveling across the country like this?
I think we've had the most positive experiences. Now, and the only con, and this is where I'm just going to have to make a plug for Zami Nobla, the community that Marianne has created, and not just her, but the people who have flocked to this community, you don't realize how much you miss it until it's gone. Because I know back in the day when I had surgery and I couldn't drive myself, somebody from Zami Nobla came and drove me to my doctor's appointments. And there was that built-in community. And I know not all the people who are on the listserv or listen to the podcast are in Atlanta, but there's something really special here. Mm-hmm. And when you're away from it, it's gone. Mm-hmm. But I can tell you, beyond that, we have made some connections on the road. Because we're doing the same thing, we already have an instantaneous connection. Mm-hmm. So even if we don't think alike politically, even if we don't look alike, or even if we don't love the same way that they love, you have an immediate connection. You live in an RV, you both have your RV, you both love to camp. Now, we have not met many Black people on the road, period. And we have not met one Black lesbian couple at all. No, and I mean, I've put out...
The one. Yes, when we were here in Stone Mountain.
Oh, but that was in Atlanta.
Yes, that was
I said
Atlanta.
On the road.
On the road, no.
Yeah, we met a Black lesbian couple who were from Texas, in Atlanta. But while we have been out, we have not met any Black lesbians. Now, we've met lots of gay people. We've met lots of white gay people. But we haven't met many Black people, period, on the road. We have stayed in the middle of the country, where people call those flyover states. Mm-hmm. We've spent a lot of time in the flyover states. Mm-hmm. A lot of the Black RVers, we belong to some Black RV clubs, they either stay in the West Coast or the East Coast. So when we say, oh, we're in South Dakota or we're in Kansas, they say, y'all where?
Yeah. Or if they're having get-togethers, they're always on the East Coast or the West Coast. And what we've also seen is that if most of them are not full-timers, most of them are just, they do it in the summertime or they do it in the fall time. It's like an off-season kind of thing when they're off from work. Or even if they've retired, they still have a sticks and bricks house somewhere that they go back to. So they don't full-time live in their RV. So that's been the biggest challenge is meeting African Americans while we're on the road. And we thought it was interesting that the first African American couple we saw was on a military base in Arkansas. And they were coming in to visit their son who lived in the area, but they were once again looking to go back to sticks and bricks. They had been RVing, I think it was full time, almost never.
No, they were on their 4th year of full timing.
Yes.
And they had full-timed before, but Larry wanted to go back. Their name was Larry and Rose. So Larry wanted to go back to a house. Rose wanted to stay in the RV. So we don't know who won.
Yeah. Yes. But it's interesting that more African Americans don't do this as a full-time thing. And it was even one of the things I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit more in Yellowstone. with African Americans vacationing as camping in places. And we didn't see a lot of them until certain parts of the year. And then it was only for about 2 weeks and then they were gone again. So it's just interesting to me and not to see faces that look like me more often.
And to fully address your question about safety, I have not felt unsafe. However, the best thing about being in an RV is if there was some place that we went and it did not feel good, like if the energy was wrong, the best thing about having an RV is that you can leave.
Crank it up and go.
Crank and go. So if you don't like your neighbors, move. If you don't like the atmosphere, leave. But so far, we've not experienced that. We've even stayed on properties in the hills of West Virginia where there was nothing but Confederate flags. I'm sure most Black people would have left. It wasn't the owners, it was the people in the campground. And we had a lovely time there.
We did.
We had a lovely time. The people were so incredibly friendly. It did, because the energy did not feel wrong. When I see a Confederate flag, I don't immediately just freak out. I was more like, well, let's take a drive around. We drove around. We walked around before we did the thing, before we registered, and the energy felt fine. So we stayed there, and I'm glad we did because it was a very interesting place and space. But Donna and I are also very open. And most people, when they look at you, they don't see lesbian because unless you say something, they won't know, because there's a lot of women who decide to travel on the road together in pairs. So it's not uncommon. There's a lot of heterosexual women, and we've met many of them who will travel in pairs because they want to be safe. So we're not an unknown quantity.
Has there ever been a point so far where you have said to each other, what the heck were we thinking about? Or has it just always been this was the right move and all points ahead?
I don't remember us having a conversation where we were like, no, this is not something we want to do anymore. I mean, in fact, most of our conversations are, we'll never move into another sticks and bricks house again. Because it's confining to us now. And right now we want to see things and do things. And, as we get older, that might change. But because we have the escapees, where they actually have places for us to buy a lot and put our RV there, live in our RV, and still have community, we may never, ever really get into a house again. And we've met people that are actually doing that. They actually, in Texas, where we went, they actually have an area for senior citizens for RVers.
Wow.
And they stay in the RV park. They stay in their RVs. They have a community center that they go to for their meals. Somebody comes and helps them wash their clothes and empty their tanks and those type of things. But it's set up so that even as you age, you can stay in your RV.
Right. It's a true assisted living called Escapee Cares. And so within our RV community, there are people who are thinking about this already. So a lot of this stuff is not advertised and something you don't hear about unless you're YouTube or you're part of the community already. There are people who are thinking about this because many people are baby boomers, and they are thinking about, what am I going to do to age in place? And that assisted living facility, we've already checked it out, and we were just like, this place is the bomb.
It is.
Wow.
It's really nice.
They even
really
have
nice.
people who will take you to medical appointments.
Yes.
And so usually it's people like us, the younger RVers, when we're in that part of Texas, we will sign up
to volunteer
to make sure people can get to their doctor's appointments, help with the cleaning,
Go
do
help
the
buy
tanks,
groceries.
all of those things. So it's RVers helping RVers. And so it keeps the cost way down.
I never thought about that before. I didn't even know that was a possibility.
Yes.
Yeah, it's happening all over the country. And I think parts of that is, once again, you don't hear about Black people doing it. People of color are kind of missing. I know in Texas, we met two at the escapees. One actually was a retired Marine colonel, and she was there. She lives in her RV, and she's in the assisted living area, and she's just trying to get more people, just like we're trying to get more people of color to do this. But because people of color don't hear that from other people of color, they wouldn't know that, it actually exists out there.
What is a day in the life like? What do you do when you get up in the RV and at the close of the day? What is it like living in an RV full time like this?
When we're not working and we're staying in place, I have a pretty rigid, I like schedules because you can turn into a lump. So usually for me, I like to get up. I'll feed the cat. I'll put on my clothes. Good Morning America is playing. I'll drink some water, get myself ready. I'm going to the gym because I want to be back in time to watch The View. So I'll go to the gym. We'll come back. The View's on. I'm usually eating breakfast. Then I'm looking to see if we have any errands to run for the day. And then I'll take a nap from 3 to 3:30. Then I'll cook dinner around 5 o'clock. And then I'll go for a walk after dinner, usually for an hour. And then if, it depends, because right now I'm talking Central Time Zone. Eastern Time Zone's got me all jacked up. I can't wait to go back further Central. West. Then I usually will either answer emails, post a little bit on Facebook, work on our blog a little bit, see if I need to do anything, and then I'll watch some TV shows, and then I read a book to go to bed. And I'm pretty solid when we're not traveling. And then Donna has a totally different schedule.
Yes, I don't get up early. I don't get up till 9. So when I hear The View come on, I'll usually get up and I'll go for a walk, come back, eat breakfast. Oddly enough, we do have jobs that we've kind of decided we're going to do, and she takes care of most of the inside stuff, and I'll take care of most of the outside stuff. So depending on how long we're going to stay someplace, I have a lot of maintenance items that I will take care outside of the RV, like checking the tires, making sure they got enough air in them, oil in the vehicle. Once a month, we run the generator to make sure it's moving. So I'll do those little things and get them out of the way. Then I'll go about answering emails or call my sister, my brother, or whatever. And then in the afternoon, after she comes back, usually from her walk, we'll sit outside and, chit chat and do nothing and admire the wildlife or whatever. She usually goes to bed long before I do. And I'm the late night person because I don't get up till 9. And about 11:30, 12 o'clock, I'll go to bed. And we'll start over the next morning. And somewhere in there, depending on where we are, we'll go sightseeing. And we always pick free things to go to. So we don't, kill our budget. And we've seen some very amazing things as we've traveled around the country. But it's just a normal schedule.
That does sound rather normal. I think most people would think that's, who are not familiar with RV living, that's extremely normal. It sounds like something I would do, Yeah. Is having the car, towing the car, essential to having that type of life? I mean, could you have done that if you said, well, we're not going to have the added responsibility of towing our car?
I don't think so, because we've met people who don't tow a car, which means they have to drive their RV, whatever its size is, wherever they want to go, whether it's the grocery store and everything else. And RVs suck up a lot of gas. So having the car gives us a second vehicle to move around, but it also gives us a second cost to keep up. But having the car allows us to be able to do and go places without having to worry about how to park something that's 31 inches long. And it's easier to hit an RV in a Walmart parking lot than it is to hit a car, obviously. You don't have people that are, trying to do things to your RV possibly. So for us, the car allows us to be able to move around a little more freely and kind of blend in with people who are going shopping, going to the movies and things like that than trying to move the RV around. But there are people that do move their RV from place to place without a car, and they seem to do well.
And I'd like to add, we have a cat. And so if we moved our RV, only used our RV, that means our cat, on travel days, our cat can get a little bit
Anxious.
upset when we first start moving. She stays in her carrier, but if that would just be a lot of time in her carrier, and it's just easier to keep the RV in one place. Mm-hmm. And as because we were just in Yellowstone, the closest grocery store from where we were was 2 hours away. If we had to take, and then you have to go over a mountain, an 8,000 foot mountain. If we had to drive the RV back and forth over that would not work with the kind of lifestyle that we wanted. Mm-hmm. But once again, there's no wrong way to do it. So there's lots of people who do it. And, when we worked at Amazon, the campground that we stayed at was 20 miles from the warehouse that we worked in. And there were people in our campgrounds who drove their RV back and forth every day because they only wanted one vehicle, but it was on flat roads. Mm-hmm. It was not in a hilly area. Mm-hmm. So it even though you do get poor gas mileage with an RV, for them, that is the life that they chose. So like I said, I will never say there's a right way or wrong way to do it. For how we want to live, having a car makes the difference.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This is a question you may need to think about, and I want us to talk about your blog next, but I'm just curious, what are some of the things that have surprised you about being on the road and visiting other parts of the country?
I guess the first thing that surprised me, and then at the same time it didn't surprise me, is in our political climate, it does not matter your race, but everybody's being impacted in some way negatively by what's going on in Washington, D.C. And it only appears that people of color are speaking out about it when it's happening to everybody. Especially in the areas because we've been in what is called the heartland, and it ranges just like, around Atlanta, from abject poverty to people who have a lot of money. And it just seems that somewhere in all of that mix, it becomes more of a political thing than I'm not getting what I need, and my basic services are not being cared for. But I'm going to stay with my political affiliation, even though they don't care or are taking care of me either. Because I remember a small town we went into, and I can't remember where it was. We went in a grocery store, and they had everything, every kind of social service placard up for food stamps, with everything. And there was not a brown face in town. A lot of the stores were boarded up because the businesses had gone out of business. The farms had been sold because there was nothing, nobody there to run them. So it was interesting to see those parts of the country, politically, and still hear the rhetoric on the news about what's going on. So those two things were not matching together. So for a while there, we just stopped watching the news because we were actually able to see what was going on and not hear it second and third hand. So I think that, to me, has been one of the most surprising things of, how can you not get basic services and still not say anything? So it's been interesting. Interesting.
I'm going to talk about money. The most surprising thing to me is how easy it was for us to stay within our budget. RVing, because like I said, there's no right or wrong way to do it. You can do it very inexpensively, or you can stay in the most expensive resort type RV places. We don't stay in the RV resort places. We kind of, like I said, we like national parks. We like Corps of Engineer parks, state parks. We like BLM land. All of those things can run from free to just a few, $9, $10 a night. I was very worried when we first started that I was like, oh man, we're going to go broke. We're going to end up going through all of our savings. No, actually, since we've done this, we've been able to save money. We always look to free first. I don't get any money from this website. It's called Atlas Obscura. They will give you, in the location of where you are, all the weird and free things to do. That's how we found out when we went to your hometown of Wichita, how we found out where the troll was. There is a troll under a bridge, and it's a piece of artwork. And if you walk over the bridge, you will completely miss it unless you have Atlas Obscura, because it will tell you exactly where it is. And we found the troll. So we try to do all the weird and wonderful free things that there are to do. So even when we go to museums, we always look to see what day of the week, because either they'll have a free or a reduced rate day. We try to go to places that will give military discounts, because Donna can get a discount. And then if she gets her discount and then I am on a half price day, then we've saved some money. Mm-hmm. So we've been able to really, really enjoy our time out there, and we're not going broke. We're able to, we made a budget and we're able to stick to it. And that's what surprised me the most, because I really did think we were going to go broke.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she was really worried about money. That was another reason why I didn't want to. I'm a very free spirit with money, so but she is not, and she just knew without her salary that we were just not going to be able to make it, just not make it. And when we started doing this, we started with a very strict budget, and we've stayed with that strict budget. But she has now been able to see that you didn't need all that money if you change some of the way you just see things, and going to free things when you go places, or not staying in the most expensive campgrounds. When you go places because since we don't have kids, we don't need slides and pools and all that other kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And I don't have anything against people that want to stay in those places, but we rarely pay $32 a night to stay anywhere. So we can maintain that budget and use that money for something else. We don't eat out a lot. We will go to some place, Kansas City. We wanted to try Kansas City barbecue.
That's right.
Yeah. So, you have to decide, and we have a budget, a food budget. Mm-hmm. And when that food budget, whether, it's eating out or groceries is gone, you have to wait till the next month. But we've never had that problem. So it's living within a budget and making sure that your budget is not so constrictive that you can't have fun too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, when I heard that you all were in my hometown of Wichita, Kansas, I was tickled fuchsia. I couldn't believe it. And you've been to some other interesting places in the country. You've been to Montana. We were talking about Cheyenne.
Yes. Yeah.
Where there's a whole host of Black folk.
Yes.
Who
definitely.
do.
Yes.
And just other places all across the country. Have you made like a rectangle? Have you been totally across? Have you made the whole?
We have not done the RV in California yet.
Okay.
We have not done Las Vegas or California, that area.
We haven't done anything west of Idaho in the RV.
Yeah.
Now, before we started the trip, I had already been to all 50 states. Mm-hmm. When we started RVing, Donna needed Rhode Island and Massachusetts. Mm-hmm. When we went to Connecticut, we got Rhode Island and Massachusetts. So we personally have both been to all 50 states. Our RV has yet to do all 50 states. Okay. But now that we're back here and then getting our storeroom, the reason we came back to Atlanta is we have a storage unit and we just needed to get that cleared out. And whatever we have left is going to Texas. When we leave here now, we probably won't be back to Atlanta area for a few years, because we've already decided that we want to do the West Coast. And so we're planning on working at Yellowstone next summer or somewhere on the West Coast.
Mm-hmm.
And when we do, we're going to start after we leave Yellowstone, we'll go out the Montana way. We'll go north so we can go through Spokane, Washington, do the Olympic Peninsula, come down to Oregon, and, keep moving before the snow. And then we'll end up in California, and then we'll end up in Arizona. Now, we like those middle states because it's cheaper.
Yes.
There's more Corps of Engineer parks, because most time when we stay in a Corps of Engineer park, we're paying between $4 and $9 a night for a campsite.
Mm-hmm.
So normally they don't have sewer, but we're only going to stay there a week. So we can go a week without having to empty our tanks.
What is a Corps Engineer Park?
The Corps of Engineers have campgrounds at dams. And so almost every dam, we stayed at this place in Barling, Arkansas, just a few weeks ago. It was $9 a night. The campsites are huge. They're so far apart. You're right on the river. We could watch the barges go by.
Wow.
Absolutely gorgeous. Almost every Corps of Engineer park we've been to has been absolutely beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, the bathrooms will range on their cleanliness, or, some are better than the others. If the bathroom is bad, we don't use it.
We have one in the RV.
We have one in the RV, but when we're trying to stretch it out a week, we try to use their toilet a couple times, during the day, and use their shower instead of putting water into our gray tank, so we can make it 7 days without having to empty our tanks. In national forests, it's like when we leave here, when we go to Louisiana on our way to Texas, we'll stop at the Kincaid National Recreation Area, and it's a national forest. It's the only national forest in Louisiana. Beautiful. I love that place.
It's just beautiful.
The hiking is gorgeous. You can ride your bikes. You're deep in the woods at night. All the deer come out, and they're huge. They're not little deer.
Yeah, they're not like Georgia deer.
No, they're huge. And they will come out, and you can watch them walk. And it's just a really nice place.
See stars there.
Yeah, you can see stars. It's just beautiful.
I'm getting the sense that I need to do some field reporting.
We're always trying to get people to meet us somewhere.
Yes, meet us somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, I need to do some field. Marianne and I, we need to do some field recording, because this is very interesting. And I think a lot of people would say, "Oh, this is wonderful," but this is not something I could do. I could never do this. I could never just give up my home and my life, and I can't afford it. This is outside my range of possibilities. To someone who would say that, what would you say to them?
The first thing I would say is how we're doing RVing, you don't have to do. You could get yourself a little R-Pod. R-Pods are like half travel trailers. You can pull them with the average 4-cylinder SUV. So you can sleep in it at night. So that means you could go out in Georgia. Mm-hmm. You could go to the Georgia mountains. There's a Corps Engineering Park right over there north of Marietta. Lake Lanier and the other one that's left of it. My mind is escaping me at the moment. But those are both Corps Engineer parks. There's a bunch of Corps of Engineer campgrounds up there. Go in a tent first. Make sure you even like it. If you're here, depending on where you live in Atlanta, you could go to Stone Mountain Park and go to their campground, pitch a tent, and say, "Do I like this?" Mm-hmm. Now, RVing and tenting is two different things, but you can rent R-Pods.
You can rent
travel trailers. You can rent
RV if you wanted to.
Right. So if you're not sure if you like the lifestyle, start small. Go on some trips, or you can go to places around Yellowstone. Most people will fly in to either Bozeman or Jackson or Cody or Casper, and they can rent an RV or rent an R-Pod and have a rental car, and then they'll go in and see if they like it. Now, Yellowstone is not easy camping. For one, it's cold, even in the middle of the winter, even in the middle of summer, because it's cold. So if you're not, and there's no services, so you have to use a bathroom, very few showers. You got to be rugged. I would not say Yellowstone is a place to go for your first camping experience. Yeah. What I would say is go local, in your local community. Go to a state park that is not far from your home and try that out first.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you may realize how much you love it. Because when Donna and I first started dating, we would go out to Stone Mountain. She just wanted to make sure I could get used to it. And then there was a women's festival, I don't know, 15, 16 years ago up in North Georgia for a weekend, and it was freezing. But we went up there and we went camping there. Start on those events where there's going to be lots of people around you who can give you the community. And I can tell you, either you'll like it or you'll be like Maggie on Grey's Anatomy, who hates camping and anything outside.
and it, as far as the money part of it, there is a group called Escapers, which is the younger version of escapees, and they are all workers. They work, whether it's from their RV, or they will drive their RV to a job that they're taking for 3 or 4 months, and then drive their RV to another job that they're taking for 3 or 4 months. So there's no one way to do RV life. It just depends on how you want to do it, and that will have to fit into your budget, because if you're going to do kind of telecommuting kind of jobs, then you need a dedicated Wi-Fi, which can get somewhat expensive in an RV because there are places that have no cell phone towers. So you have to be prepared for that. But if we've met traveling nurses, we've met traveling doctors, welders, construction workers. We've met all kind of people that are traveling in the United States in their RV and still working. Some of them bring their families with them. And their kids are homeschooled. So there's no one way to do it. It's just a matter of figuring out what works for you.
So tell me how long you all have been together as a couple, and how has RV life affected your relationship?
We've been together for 15 years. We were married 3 years ago in June. I think RVing has, helped us with communication, because you have to be able to communicate to back up an RV.
Yes. Definitely.
Yeah, so you have to be able to communicate well to do that. And we also get to see each other more.
Yes.
Because even though we work in the same places, we don't usually see each other at work.
Yeah, we sometimes, because even in Yellowstone, they were surprised because most of the couples wanted to be on the same shifts. And when they got to us, we were like, nah, that's okay. We don't have to be on the same shift, because we know that everybody needs personal space and personal time. And even when we're not working, we do that because, like I said, she gets up early, she goes and does her thing. She'll close the little pocket door to the bedroom and doesn't bother me. And I sleep. And then in the evening, I'll have my time while she's getting ready to go to bed. So you all need that space and time away from each other. And learning how to manage that is a part of getting used to RVing. But yeah, I think we do communicate better. We spend more time actually conversating with each other. And it's not about, okay, when are we going to do this, and who do we need to go see, and what doctor's appointment is. It's a different kind of conversation. It's a richer kind of conversation.
Beautiful. So there's a blog.
Yes. We write a travel blog because we wanted people to see our experiences. And so I give the good, bad, and the ugly. So this week will probably be about coming
down off the mountain from Yellowstone.
Right. And part of downsizing is a process. We are still in that process. So I don't want you to think we sold our house and everything was great. No, we had that storage unit. And once we got into the storage unit, also made us look at what we kept in the RV. And so every time we stay at some place for a long period of time, we go through, see what clothes we haven't worn. And if we haven't worn those clothes and it's that season, they go away. So we're down to very little bits of clothes because one, you don't need to wear them. I keep like one nice dress and I keep one kind of funeral dress just because stuff happens.
Right.
Because usually if I'm going to a nice event, it's not going to be in the same exact place. So if I wear that same dress to every single nice event, people are not, well, they're going to know now because I just told them. But y'all all aren't going to see me at that one event. So it's okay that I wear that same exact dress. But part of the purging and going through and realizing that we still were holding on to things that were not bringing us joy, and we've just released a lot more because we're the kind of RVers, we are about experiences and not stuff. So don't buy us gifts. If you want to see us, we'd rather have a meal with you. We'd rather talk with you. We'd rather hug you. Don't feel like you're saying that, we don't want gifts.
Because then we have to find some place to put them.
Right. We want the gift of your time. We want the gift of your presence, but that's all a presence, not presents. So that's all that we really want from people at this point in our lives, because those are the things that we remember. We'll take some pictures. We'll blog about it. And our blog is jodochasingrainbows.com. And you can also follow us on Facebook. But that's where we are in our life.
We'll put a link to that in the show notes.
Absolutely.
J-O, spell that at the beginning.
Jodo, chasingrainbows.com.
Wonderful. Wonderful. This has been such an exciting conversation. I'm on this current minimalism kind of trend myself, and I realize that there's just a whole bunch of stuff in my life that I don't use and I don't need. And I think having so much stuff really prohibits us from going to all the wonderful places in the world, metaphorically and physically, that we can go. So it's been just special having you talk to us about your journey. I always close with a final question to my guests, and that is there anything we left out? Or is there something that you wish I had addressed so that you could give that piece of information to our listening audience?
I think we've covered all the bases, but I just want to, again, just get out and travel. And even if it's in your own state, go visit a town that you've never gone to before. So if you're in Georgia, have you ever been to Plains, Georgia? Have you ever been to Albany or Valdosta? Just go someplace different and immerse yourself in that place and space, because once that's going to be less expensive because you're not going to have to go far, but just do it because you don't realize what you're missing, the richness of experiences that you are missing by not traveling.
And I would have to say, get to know the people you don't normally know at work. Because as we get to know other people better, we will all be a little bit better.
Great words to close on. Thank you both for being part of our Black lesbian herstory. What a great conversation with Jowanna and Edonna. Wow, that gave us a lot of food for thought. Not just about the RV lifestyle, but how we can map out our future world of possibilities for a future of travel and adventure. Thank you, Edonna and Jowanna, for such a stimulating conversation. And as usual, we had a whole lot of dialogue beyond the stop button. So we'll have to follow that up with a field recording with them sometime next year. Safe journeys. If you like the Zami Nobla podcast, then say something. Tell somebody about it. Give us your feedback and comments. As always, I so appreciate your listening to the podcast. Thanks, and have a sweet one.